Hey, it's Monica B, creator of HeyMonicaB.com, a blooming resource on Ayurveda, and author of In Your Elements, a blooming Ayurvedic guide to creating your best life. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about heat therapy. So whether you are a kapha type person or whether it is just spring, you could probably benefit from some heat therapy. Also, perhaps even in winter or fall. When it's cold outside, when the nature is colder, cooler, damper, we need to bring some of that heat into our bodies to keep our digestive fire strong. So there's a few ways that you can do heat therapy. Specifically, we're going to talk about kapha or springtime, because Kapha Dosha rules springtime. And the biggest thing about springtime is that agni, our digestive fire, really starts to dampen. So our job is to keep that nice and strong and fiery because we want to digest our food properly. If we don't digest our food properly, it can give way to all kinds of different disease because that old food stuff goes into different places of our body and can cause problems. So we want to always make sure that we digest our food well. So one of the ways we can bring in heat therapy is through internal spices. Okay, so we can start to add things like ginger to our meals. Ginger tea is so awesome. Especially awesome with ginger tea is a little bit of honey, because honey is kapha's #1 food. It dries and scrapes and heats. So the combination of a little bit of honey and a ginger tea is so good and perfect. It's best on an empty stomach. Might even be the best time to do it in the morning instead of like a breakfast. If you're feeling heavier from the night before, you can skip breakfast and just have a ginger tea with some honey until you start to feel hungry at around lunchtime. That is a-okay if you are feeling slow and sluggish in your digestion, you really don't feel like eating. Don't eat. Have ginger tea, put a little honey in it, and you should start to feel hungry by noon. Other spices you can use are cumin, which is great for like vegetarian tacos. You could put some black beans, you could do some cumin in there and some chili powder. It kind of tastes like a little taco mix. You put the beans and maybe some zucchinis or peppers or other vegetables and put it on a little corn tortilla. That is the most awesome meal for kaphas. And it's bringing in that digestive heat. It's actually promoting our digestive fire to grow, as well as bringing lightness and dryness and heat to the kapha person, because that's what they need the most. Kaphas are cold, wet, oily, static, and heavy. And so all the foods should be light and dry and spicy for kaphas and or for springtime for some of the rest of us that might not be kaphas, but we want to eat better for the season. Other spice is fennel. You can have fennel. You know, when you go to an Indian restaurant, they have the little fennel candies that you can eat after you're done with your meal. There's a reason, because fennel is really, really good for digestion. So you can make a fennel tea. Just take some fennel, I don't know, it doesn't really matter, tablespoon, put it in the teapot, boil it for 10 or 15 minutes, strain it, and sip the tea. That is awesome as well. You could have that after a meal, or you could have that in between a meal as well, just as a really nice tea. And it's sweet, really nice. Vatas and pittas can use fennel also because it is tridoshic. Okay. Black pepper is another one. So awesome for kapha, especially because it works right here on the chest. And it brings heat quite quickly. If you've ever had something that's overly black pepper, you might even sneeze because it is bringing in that heat and really starts to open up the channels, especially in the chest. If you've got a cough, if you've got congestion, black pepper, awesome. Put it on everything. So that's one way to bring in heat therapy, is through the spices. Another way to bring in heat therapy is dry heat. So a sauna, you should go to the desert during spring break, especially if you're a kapha person. Humidity is not going to feel good. Get someplace dry, get into a sauna, like I said, if you can. You know, you could do other things, like you could, if you got a fireplace, you could start the fire in your fireplace to bring in some of that dry heat to counterbalance the wetness and the raininess of spring. So there's a few ways to bring in dry heat. You can also do a vigorous massage on your body. Now, this is not necessarily an oil massage like we might do for vatas or for pittas because kaphas are already oily. So they need like friction, right? They need like dry heat, dry friction. So take a light oil if you choose, like safflower oil or sunflower oil, and you can put it on your body. But I want you to do like a nice massage like this. Okay, all pressure goes toward the heart and then you release pressure as you go down. So you can do that along your arms and your legs, and you can massage your feet, and you might feel this really nice, like invigorated, all right, I'm ready to move. I got some heat in me, some invigoration. We can use the sense of touch in that way to bring in the heat and get the body enlivened, right? Bring up heat, don't we? What is sweat is the result of heat expelling excess water, right? And in Ayurveda, sweat is a waste product. So it's important for us to sweat regularly, especially kaphas, because kaphas are made of water and earth. So they have the danger of getting overly watery, which can cause problems for them. They can feel overly heavy or overly watery, which is not good. So kaphas need to sweat on a regular basis, daily if you can. And what that will do is release some of that water, releases some of those waste products, some of those toxins that need to come out instead of being held inside the body. And through that, kaphas will feel so much lighter, and it brings up the heat. So heat is good for a couple reasons, because it's not just warming the body, but heat actually dries it out. Like if you think about putting a piece of clothing on a clothing line, it will dry far faster if it's in the sun versus in the shade. Well, that's the same thing that heat does. So I want you to think about heat being useful for kapha in two ways. It is heating, warming, which they need because they're cold, but with that heat, it also brings a dryness, which is good because they are wet, or like we say, oily. Kind of similar, a little bit complicated, but just think of that. They're kind of wet and oily, so you want the dryness to come. And that's what really helps balance a kapha. So heat therapy in 3 different ways. You can use internal spices. You can get to a dry, warm environment, or run to the gym down the street, get a trial membership, and go sit in a sauna for a month. Or exercise and sweat. Bonus points if you can do all 3, especially during springtime. You're gonna feel so light and amazing. And if you feel a difference, go ahead and chat below. I wanna hear your comments. I wanna hear your questions. I hope this served you today. If you like it, share it with your friends and subscribe to my channel. You can also grab a copy of my book, In Your Elements, on Amazon, which has a full Ayurvedic roadmap and teachings for you so you can keep bringing Ayurveda to life. Mwah.